Hello, welcome to our Python programming series video number 3. In the previous two videos, we see about the installation of Python in the PyCharm IDE to run the Python codes. And in the second video, we see about the data types, about the variables, and also about defining the functions and using the Python built-in functions. If you are a complete beginner for Python, you can find the links for those two videos of the introduction about Python, and you can find the links in the description. And if you have the basics about Python, you can continue from the today's video number 3. In this video, we will build on the understandings of variables, data types, and functions from the previous video, and we will explore about the Python flow controls. These flow controls allow us to direct the execution of our programs based on certain conditions in one case, or in the other case, to repeat certain codes or block of codes using some loops. We call them as the control flows. So these control flows will include two categories. The first one is conditionals, which depends on some conditions, and the second category is just loops. The conditional control flow include if, else, if. We call this one Elif, and the other one is just this. These are the control flow functions in Python, which are used to execute certain code depending on some conditions. Or the other one is just the loops. In loops, we use for and while loops. These for and while loops used to repeat certain codes or certain block of codes. Okay, we will see each of the first one is from the conditionals category of the control flows, which is an if statement. If statement allow us to execute certain block of code only if a certain specific condition or a certain condition is true, we execute the code. If that's false, we didn't execute. For example, if I have some number, let's say, if I have a number 5, and if I want to use the if condition to check if the number is greater than some value or less than some value, I will use if, then I will give the name of the variable, which is num, if num greater than, if I want to check whether it is greater than, let's say 10. Now this condition checks the number greater than 10 or less than 10. If it is greater than 10, I will say the number is greater than 10. If I run this code, what it will print is just nothing, as the code is now run, but I didn't see anything because the condition is false. Now the number is 5, and the condition is if the 5 is greater than 10, that is false. So the line of code is not executed because it depends on the condition. But if I give a certain number which is greater than 10, now the condition is true, it says the number is greater than 10 will be executed as you see here. If this condition is not true, and if we want to add a second condition, we combine this if and else if. That is just the second conditional, the control flow, the conditional control flow, which is if. That's called else if the first condition is not true. This else if and else, the last one, and just else, which means if the first condition, I have one condition, if this is true, do something, or if it is not true, do the other thing. When we say such kind of conditions, we use this else if and also else in the controls. So we can use the same condition, the previous one, this condition, and we will add else if and else. So in this case, I will repeat this one. If the number is greater than 10, then print num greater than 10. Else if, first one is else if number is less than, second condition, if the number is less than 10, I will use the same expression, then print the number is less than. Other condition is if they are equal. The other option is the number will be greater than 10, the number will be less than 10, or that will be equal. So if that's equal, the number is equal to, then else print function, the number is equal to 10. So Now, when I run this one, since 15 is greater than 10, only the first condition is true, which the number is greater than 10, then the output will be num is greater than 10. Now, the number is greater than 10 is only true. If I make it 5, now it is less than, then the else if will be executed, and I will run this one. The number is less than 10, and if I make it 10, since they are equal, the number should be, the last one is executed. The number is equal to 10, which is equal to 10. So we can have this conditional control flows in Python with if, else, if, or else. We can also make a nested conditional loops, what we call a nested loops. And nested conditionals. Okay, the second type is just the nested conditionals, which means we use one conditional inside of the other conditional just to nest them. So if I have a number 20, and if I want to check whether this number is greater than 10 and less than 30 at the same time, which means just greater than 10 and less than 30, what I could say is I can say if the number is greater than, just the first one is I will check if that is greater than 10, and in this if I will open also another if, and I will check the number is less than 30. This is the second condition. So now I have two conditions: if the number is greater than 30, and also another condition inside of this greater than 10, which is the number is less than 30, then print the number is greater than 10 and less than 30. So now 20 is greater than 10 and less than 30. I will run, and you will see the number is greater than 10 and less than 30. But if I make the number of 80, now this number 80 is greater than 10, the first condition is fulfilled, then it continues to the second condition, but this number is not less than 30, so I will not see anything in the output. As you see here, now it isn't print anything because the condition 80, second condition, which is the number less than 30, is false because 80 is greater than 30. And now I will jump to the loops. We use these loops when we want to repeat certain part or certain portion of or the operations in the codes or in the line of codes. The first one is just loop is for, and the second one is while loop. So I will start from the for loop. From these for loops, how we define these for loops or the syntax is just for, we use the keyword for, and we specify the indices. So that is just if you can take any value in, then give the name of, let's say if I want to say range 3, if I use this expression, which means for I starts from 0, 1, 2, and 3. For this four values of I from 0, 1, and 2, 0, 1, 2, for these three values, it does something inside this for loop. I can even print itself, or which means the I value. Now I will say that's just I. Okay, now this is a for loop which will print I. I is in the range of 3, which means this range is a built-in function which generates the numbers from 0 to the number specified. Means if it is 3, we will have 0, 1, and 2. Then I will run this code, and you see here 0, 1, and 2 are written. It repeats the print. So I is from 0 to 3, so this range. When we come to the second point, which is a while loop, which is the while to create these loops, the difference in the while is while executes the as long as a certain condition is true. If the condition is true, it continues. If it is false, it stops. But in for loops, we specify the number of iterations, 10, 20, or something, the number of iterations, and the execution continues until the specified number of iterations. But in while loop, we didn't specify the number of iterations, but we give some conditions, and as long as the condition is true, the while loop runs, and if the condition is false, that loop stops or it breaks. So we can implement the same code, the same expression that we write in for loop using this while loop. If in this case, I will initialize I from certain value, I will initialize just the first number is 0, so I will initialize I from 0. Then I will put the condition. Condition was while, so in the for loop we print from 0 to range of 3. Range of 3 stops at 2. So the maximum value for the list is 2. And the condition that I will write here will be for I less than 3. Now I put the condition, then what I will do is the code will be print, then that is I, it prints I, and since I is some value I initialize with 0, now I will update I value, then I is equals to I plus. Now when the first case I is 0, now it checks whether 0 is less than 3. Yes, it prints 0, then it updates the value of I to 1. Just 0 plus 1, 1. Then it again checks the condition. 1 less than 3, true, it prints 1. Then update the value of I to 2 less than 3, true, it prints 2. Then 2 plus 1, it gives 3. Then 3 less than 3, false. Now when the condition is false, it stops the execution. So I can run this one and you see, oh, I forget to put the colon here. That's just syntax. We should put the end of the for loop, the end of the while loop, at the end of if, else, or else if. All the control flows, we should put this colon at the end. When I run this one, now since I run everything, the first for loop, these 3 are the results from the first for loop, then it runs in the same way. It prints 0, 1, and 2 from the while loop. We can also nest this while loop and for loop. We can have some nest functions. I will start from the for loop. Let's say for I in, so I should put the condition in range. I will use the same one, the previous one, in range 3. Now I put the first for loop. So inside this for loop, I can add also another for loop. And now in this case, the variable should be something different. Now I use j in range of 3. Then I will print, in this case, I can print I comma j. I can print I is this one or j, but I will print the summation for these two numbers. That will be my condition. Then I can say I plus j. In this case, since it is a nested loop, the first one, it takes value of I, which is 0. Now, if we think about the results, what will be the results if the first one is just I, which is equals to, I is equals to 0. In this case, j will be what? J will be 0 or 1. So in this case, it prints just for I, the first one is just 0. It starts from 0. The 0 plus 0, the output will be 0. Then 0 plus 1, it will be 1. Then I is updated. In the next case, I will be 1. Then if I is equals to 1, j similarly has two values, 0 or 1. Then the output will be 1 plus 1, which is 1. I will add here, and 1 plus 1, that will be in the third case. In the third case, what will be I will be 2. That's just until the range of 3. So it will be 0, 1, or 2. Then in this case, j is similarly the same with, then j is the same with 0 or 1. In the same case, 2 plus 0, that is 2. Then 2 plus 1, which is 3. So in general, if I run this one, the output will be 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and then finally 3. I will run this one and we will check the result. Here is the result, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and finally 3. That will be the nested loop. So we can use the conditionals and we can use loops. Two different categories. Conditionals, if we have certain condition to be fulfilled to execute a certain code, we use these conditionals, which includes if, else if, and also else. And the second category is if we want to repeat a certain operation or a certain block of code to execute repeatedly, we use loops. And these loops include for loop and also while loop. Now we will summarize about this control equations with the exercise you see on the screen. The exercise is as follows. The password strings validator to validate the strings of a password. So here is the exercise. Create a password that validates the strings of the user's password. Just it accepts password from the user and it checks the validity of the password with certain specific conditions, and the user is allowed up to 5 attempts to input the valid password. And the criteria for the password are here. The first one, the password must be at least 8 characters long. The second criteria, the password must contain at least one uppercase letter. Third criteria, the password must contain at least one lowercase letter. The fourth criteria, the password must contain at least one digit. And the fourth criteria, the password must contain at least one special character. Special characters include just space, some punctuations like exclamation marks, the @ symbol, or the hash, or some symbols like a dollar sign, the percent sign, or the end sign, and let's see. These are called the special characters, so it should also include one special character. So these are the conditions. Then we will write our code to validate the password. So the first thing that we will do here is to define our function. Before we go through the validation step, we should have some function which could validate our code. So we will define our function. So if you don't know how to define a function or haven't an experience on the functions, you can go to the second video on the description and you can learn about how to define the custom functions in Python. So I will define my function. The syntax for defining the function is just def in Python. So I will define my function, that is just def. Then I will give the name of my function. Then I can say just I try to make it more descriptive. So is the password valid? I will say this is just the name for my function. Is the password valid? This is just the name of the function. Then I will give a parameter to check. Okay. Now I define the function, the name of my function. Then the first thing is just from the conditions. Now this is the function and the function wants to validate 5 of the criteria. So the first criteria was to check or just the password must contain 8 characters long. I will check this one. So to check whether it has 8 characters or not, it is just conditional. So I will use the conditional function. Then I will start by saying if then the length of the character should be 8 or more. So I can say len, which checks the length of a certain function. Then the length of the password, that is just the variable given for the name, is greater than or less than. If is less than 8, that should be at least 8. So if it is less than 8, I put the condition now. And if it is less than 8 characters long, now I will put the instruction because it is just less than the number is the number of characters or the minimum number of characters required. I will give the instruction as the password must be at least 8 characters long. At least 8 characters long. Okay. Now this is the first condition which check whether the length of password is less than 8 characters or greater than 8 characters. And if this condition is just less than 8, it prints the password must be at least 8 characters long. And the answer for is the password is valid. Now that's false. So I say return false. It returns false, which means the password is invalid. Okay. Now I will come to the next condition just to check whether it contains an uppercase letter, lowercase letter, a digit, and also a character. So in this case, we should check whether all the characters, step by step, for all of the characters, whether they are capital, they are small letters, they are digit, or they are some special characters. In this case, I will assign some initialization values. Let's say just has some uppercase letter, some uppercase, or I can say the lowercase for. So if it has an uppercase letter and I will initialize this one with false, initially I will say that's just false. This is called what? An initialization. Then has lowercase second one. I will say this one is just lower and I will also initialize this one with false. Then I will go to next has digit. That's just for checking whether it contains a number or not, some digit. So I will give this one also an initial value of false, and also the last one, the last condition, to check whether it has a special character or not. So some I can say has special character, and I will initialize this one with false. Okay, now I initialize the password contains the uppercase letter, the lowercase letter, the digit, and also a special character to false, which means the password is invalid in this case. Then I will check each of the characters whether they are capital, small, a digit, or some special character. Then I will move with, since I want to check each of the characters, first character, then the second character, the third, fourth. So I will repeat a certain operation just in a loop. So I will define some loop to check for each of the characters. In this case, I will use a for loop. So I will say this one, I can say I for the variable, but to make it more descriptive, I will say just character, car, this char, which is just for the character. So char in the character, or which is in password, I will have string for the password. Then from the string of the password, it takes each of the characters. Then it takes the characters and I will define. So it checks whether it is capital or small or special character or digit. In this case, this is some kind of conditional. Is it true? So if I take the first character, then is it capital? Yes or no. Is it small? Yes or no. Is it a digit? Yes or no. Is it a special character? Yes or no. So it is some kind of conditionals to check whether it is true or false. So I will define the kind of if conditions inside the for loop, which is also a nested loop, a nested flow control, or the control flow with a conditional nested inside the loops. So if the character is now, that is just the first one, I take the character and I will put the character in this case and check if it is an upper letter, a lower letter, or a digit. There are a built-in Python functions to check this one. So I will say is upper, which checks if the character is upper letter or small letter. And I will take this one, and if it is upper in this case, now if it is an upper letter, if it is true, or the answer is upper is true, the answer will be the value that I initialized previously has upper will be true in this case. If this condition is fulfilled, it has a one upper letter. Then the next one is if the second condition, if, or I can say else if it doesn't include any capital letters, then I will check also if the character has some lower letters. So is lower, I will go for lower. And if it is lower, if the character is lower, now I will move to the has lower and update the value has lower, and I will update this one to if the condition is true, which means if the character is true, lowercase. Okay, if this is fulfilled, now the other is else if, or else if the second condition is to check whether it is a digit or not. So check for the character is digit, and I will put, yeah, if it is a digit, or if the answer for this one is true, then has digit will be updated to true. Now I will have the value for digit is true, second condition. Then if this is not fulfilled, then again I will go for whether it is an alphanumeric or not, to check that is special character or not. This is not somehow a straightforward, so I will use else if. So the first one is to check if the character is alphanumeric. That's called is alnum. Is alnum means is the character alphanumeric, which means the alphanumeric means the first one is just if it is an alphabetic, which means the letters from A to Z, capital or small letters, or a digit from 0 to 9. They are called alphanumeric. So if the character is alphanumeric, true or false. So if it's alphanumeric means which is not a special character. So to check whether it contains a special character, which means we should negate this expression. Else if not alphanumeric, which means if the character is not an alphabet or a number, which means that is a special character, which is the note is just to negate the alphanumeric value. Then in this case, I will update the special to the special function, or it has a special function to true. Now I initialize, so it checks each of the characters in the for loop and whether it's true or false. It checks whether that is true or false. This if condition is. Then now I will check in this for loop, I will check for all the characters inside the password and check is it upper, lower, or digit, or is it a special character, and it updates the value for the upper, lower, digit, and special character. Now I will check whether the has upper, has lower, has digit, or has special character updated to true, or still they are false, and decide. If they are still false, which means the password is still invalid. If they are updated to true, password is valid. So I will move to this conditions. Since it is a condition now, I will use to check this one. If has upper. Now if has upper, if has upper is true, now the password is valid. So when is the password invalid? If it is false. So to say if this is false, I should negate this one with not. If not has upper means has upper is false. If I say if has upper, which means if condition is fulfilled, has upper is true. Now when I negate with not before this has upper, it's negates to false, which means the password doesn't contain any capital letter. So in this case, I will print a message for the user which says the password must contain at least one uppercase letter. Okay, so this is the message for the user. The password must contain at least one uppercase letter. Okay, then I will check also the next one, which means now this is false and it returns the function. I should return the value, the function returns false. That is error and the password is not valid, because I will check that is just the validity of the password, which returns a false means the password is just not valid. Then the next one, I will go also if to check that is if has lower is true or false. So to check that one is false, I will also negate in the same way as the previous one, and I will print a message here for the user which says the password must contain at least the password lowercase letter. Okay, and since it is false, it returns false. Go for the third one and check for it has digit or not. So if in similar way, if not, I will negate this one. If not has digit, then print the password must contain at least one digit. Then since it is false, it returns the function will return false. The last one is to check whether it contains an alphanumeric or not. So if not has a special character. If it doesn't include any special character, it will print a message for the user that the password must contain at least one special character. Okay, this is the message for the user and it returns false. Now it checks all the conditions whether it contains the upper letter, small letter, a digit, or a special character. If one of these is fulfilled, it returns false and it gives the message for the user that the problem maybe it's the password must contain at least one uppercase letter, lowercase letter, one digit, or the password must contain at least one special character. So if one of the conditions is fulfilled, if all of this is not fulfilled, which means password is valid, then the function returns. If all the conditions listed above are false, then it returns true. in this case, all password is just two. Now this is all about function. Now we define the function. We checks all the conditions about the digit. So first we check about the length, checks the length. If it is valid, it continues to the next one. Check whether it is true. I mean, it contains uppercase, it contains lowercase, it contains the digit and also the special character. And if all the conditions are fulfilled, it means the note is just all of them are false, it returns to true value, which means the password is now valid. And this is all about function. Now I have my own function to check the password is valid or not. So I will define my other conditions and just give the user or ask the user to input the password. So the first one is one of the conditions is just the user can try up to 5 attempts, or the allowed the user is allowed to use allowed up to 5 attempts to input a valid password. So I will initialize the attempts, then that's just 0. I will initialize with 0 because no one starts to have. Then I will give the maximum attempts value, that's just 5 from the requirements or from the givens. Then now I will try to ask the user to input a valid password. And here is some kind of loop. If password is correct at the first trial, that's just valid. And if it is not valid, it asks the user to repeat second time or third time or fourth time. But we don't know on which iteration is the user could input the right password or the valid password. So it's kind of a loop, but we don't know how many iterations we have. In this case, in such cases of the loops, the while loop is just good option, just because in the for loops, we use some specific number of iterations and it repeats until the iteration is just completed, or the iteration is completed. But in this case, we don't know on which iteration or on which trial the user will put the right password or the valid password. So we use while condition, and this while condition is now if the attempts is less than the maximum attempts. That's just the condition. Now, if the attempts is less than the maximum attempts, because it's just the maximum limit, if that's just less than the attempt, then we ask the user to input a password. So we will put that one with a password and we ask the user to input some values. So the Python built-in function to ask the user to input the parameter is just that's the input function, which is a built-in function. Then I will say input. Then I will ask the user to enter their password. Enter your password. I will put colon and I give space just to separate the user password with the text or the string enter your password. So it will ask the user to enter the password. Then when the password enters, the user enters the password, it checks whether it is valid or not from the function. So to check that one, so what we could is just if now we want to check if that is a valid password or not. So what we call the function, we have already defined the function. So I call my function is password valid, and I give the value password, which is the value. When if this condition is valid, which means this if condition is true when the return is true, or all the conditions are fulfilled. Or if not, that's just false, and it returns some false value for this one, and this if condition is just false. So if this condition is true, which means if the password is valid, now I will print for the user that the password is valid. Password is valid. I will put some exclamation here. Okay, the password is valid, and if the password is just valid, the user is not required to repeat process. That's not important to repeat the function or the process here. So the second thing is just what we, okay, I should question mark here. Okay, yeah. Then I will ask to just execute the run or the loop, because already the password is just valid. Now I use just a break function, which is just whenever the function is true, then it stops the execution or it stops the loop. And if this is false, this is just bypassed. Only this is executed when the if condition is true or when the password is just valid. And if the password is not valid, else, so we will print something because the password is now false and we try at one, then the attempt is just the next step, the attempt. Now I will update this attempt. The attempt should be the attempt plus one. I can use this expression. Actually, this one could be in short written in this as this one. Attempts plus is equals to 1. The expression attempts is the same with attempts plus 1. We have the value for attempt, then plus 1, it is updated and assigned to the same variable attempt. Or in Python, we can write in short for attempts plus is equals to 1. They give the same expression. You can use this as you want. I will keep the previous one. So now it updates the attempt once, or just the number of attempts. Then I will print a statement or some message how many attempts that the user tries. This is just to make more descriptive the script or the interactions with the user and the code. So I will print some string which contains, in the string I will write, so maybe attempt, then I will give the number of attempt, then I will say just the attempt over the total attempt. Then I will give that is just, let's say, one of from the 5 attempts or 3 of the 5 attempts. It's kind of like that. So I will give the values inside the string. We use these curly brackets, and I will use this one, the maximum attempts. So attempt, let's say if this one, the third one, attempt 3 or 5 is just invalid, or that's just failed. Out. So try again. I will give a chance to try again for the user. Okay. Then when I say this try again, since the condition for this one is not true, this break is not executed, which means the loop continues again. See, if it checks again, the attempt, the updated is less than the maximum, and it asks again to enter for the password. So in this case, if I leave like this one, it will write the next one, enter your password next to this string, next to the string, try again. So I will make that one to a new line. For a new line in Python, we use backslash and n, which moves the next statement to a new line. This one prints the attempt plus 1. Then this is just the, I should check the attempt if I should have another if inside this condition, because I want to also check whether the attempt is less than after the update, because it is already updated. To print this statement, I should check the attempt. Then if I check the attempt is less than the maximum of attempt, then I put this one. Then I will print this attempt is just failed and it continues. Else, if this is not true, I could say just that is the maximum attempt or the maximum trial for him. So I will give some print just to notify the user that this is his maximum attempt. The maximum attempt reached. I will give the maximum attempt reached. Try again later, maybe, or yeah, please try again. Now I give the description for the user. So maybe I can add at the end if the attempt is the same with the maximum attempt. I can say fail to set a valid password after 5 attempts or something. But this is enough in my case. Now I will run. Now this is just to check the attempt. If the password is right, it says that's true, or if that's not, it says just the attempt is this one failed and the maximum attempt reached if that is just the maximum. If okay, now I will run the script. Then as you see here, it asks me to enter the password. Enter the password is because here from the user input I put the I will show here. Yeah, here this is just the user input statement, and I will give the password, and it saves with password, and it passes to the function of this valid check. Password is valid. So first one, I will start by giving some password which is less than 8 characters. That's just the first condition. When I hit enter, now you see the password must be at least 8 characters long. So my password is really less. And attempt 1 of 5. Since I have 5 chance, the first is just failed and it says try again. So the use for this one, I will show here why I use this \n was if I didn't use this one, the new line to try again, the enter password will continue from this point. So I don't want to do that one. So I give the new line, it gives this new space and now I have the enter password command again. Now I will use the password. Now it is 8 characters long, but it doesn't have any uppercase letter, but it has a lowercase. Since it is in order for the loops, the first one, what it will check is just to have 8 characters, then that was not fulfilled. Now I make password, which is 8 characters long. It moves to the next condition, which is to check whether it has an upper letter or the uppercase letter or not. Then it moves to check the lowercase, then the digit, then the special character in order. So I will give this. So in this case, I use the password, which has 8 characters. The first condition is fulfilled, but the next one is not. I will enter. And here you will see the password must contain at least one uppercase letter, which is the second this condition. Now I will write the first P with capital, then the password. The second trial is just failed. So now I have the capital and the small, and this condition is fulfilled, and I have the lowercase letter that's by default fulfilled. Then it moves to this condition, which is just to check whether it has a digit or not. Since I didn't put any digit when I say enter, it says the password must contain at least one digit. Still, I don't have the good password. This is just third trial. Then I will put the password, then 2. Now I have a digit, so it should be kind of good for the digit. Then it passed this condition, but still I have another new condition, which is about the special character. Since I don't have a special character, now password must contain at least one special character. Then I will give password, then I can say _1. Now I have capital, I have small, I have special character, which is the underscore, and this one, 1, which is the digit. So this is now the valid one finally. Then you see here, password is now valid. So we can check password or the validity of the password with combination of the control flows. In this example, I use while loops it contains all the control loops I have here, the if and else if conditions, which are the conditional control flows. And also I have a nested conditional flow because I have if in another if statements or if conditions, and these all if conditions are nested in the while loop or the while condition. So I nest the if conditions with while. So And I have also the for loops. I have the if conditions inside the for loops. In this video, we cover all the basics of these control flows in Python, including the conditionals, if, else if, and also else, and the loops, which includes the while loop and also the for loop. These tools allow us to make decisions in our code and also repeat some operations efficiently with the loops. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the channel for the more Python tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to have them in the comments below. Thank you.